Got a question asking if you're a homeowner and you have Section 8 tenant neighbors that are, I guess, causing a nuisance or whatnot, what can you do? Hi, my name is Rob Wells. I'm the Landlord Boy on TikTok and YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to our videos. Now, I deal with a lot of situations where, tenants may be violating the lease or causing a nuisance and that type of deal. And how the landlord usually finds out about these issues are the neighbors will actually bring those complaints to the landlord of the tenants. So if you're a neighbor, basically, and you're having problems with your neighbor, obviously your tenant neighbors, obviously trying to resolve the issue without getting the landlord involved is probably going to be the best type of result. However, listen, there's situations where there may be criminal activity or the nuisance is more than an occasional loud party, that type of deal where you may need to get the landlord involved. And in this case here, you're gonna want to let the landlord know what's going on. Because the landlord has a duty to, ensure that their tenants are not misusing the property, so to speak, or causing a nuisance to others. I have to warn landlords that if you have a problematic tenant and you don't take any legal action to deal with those tenants and something happens, such as the behavior escalates or there's, worse. I've had some cases where there's violent activity, that type of deal, and the landlord's hesitant with dealing with that. You could be held liable potentially for negligence amongst other reasons to sue the landlord because allowing a tenant to commit a nuisance or violate the lease and disturb others might be a breach of quiet enjoyment. There's a covenant between landlords and tenants for that, and kind of the same thing goes for people that live in a neighborhood, that type of deal. You're not allowed to keep what we call a nuisance in the neighborhood type of deal. So there's certain laws that protect property owners surrounding a problematic tenant. So landlords, I will say this: if you are getting complaints about your tenants and you don't know what to do, you don't know how to address that deal, it might be a good idea to talk with legal counsel to figure out what you can do to address those problems, because each nuisance situation is a little bit different. Some nuisances are more severe than others. You've heard me on the channel here, dealing with a tenant that has committed criminal acts and assaulted people, that type of deal, you treat differently than one that's, playing loud music. Type of deal, things that could be fixed. So the law does give landlords the ability to terminate a tenancy for a persistent nuisance or even under a rental agreement if the lease has provisions that the tenant is not to cause a problem, that type of deal. Those terms could be enforced and should be enforced to avoid a landlord having legal liability. So one last thing for owners, that type of deal that may be dealing with a problematic tenant situation, contacting your local law enforcement and documenting problems, particularly if there are criminal acts involved. Now, I'll be real, a lot of places now, the law enforcement presence, is not what it used to be because of staffing issues, that type of deal. But the more documentation you have, and you report it to the owner, if it's a good landlord, they're gonna, get legal counsel and start doing an eviction or terminating the tenancy for nuisance. But some other owners that are neglecting their property, you may need to bring legal action. So, but we don't deal with that. We help good landlords get rid of bad tenants and bad situations, bad tenancies, that type of deal. So landlords, if you're facing this situation and if you're in the Northern California area and you don't know what to do, feel free to reach out. You can hit our profile down below to book a free case review. Just a couple of questions to make sure we're a good fit and we can help you out. And put your comments, questions down below. Until next time, folks, I'll talk to you then. Thanks.